everyone. Welcome back to Badger State Ball Podcast here. This is our first David Go-less episode, so we'll see how it goes. I'm Andy Soroka, managing editor here at Prep Baseball. We got Vinny Routina, Josh Fields with us. We are in full swing with our Wisconsin preseason ID circuit. It's been a busy couple weeks. Things are off and running. We were in Kenosha a couple weeks ago, our very first winter event of this season of 2025. That took us to Eau Claire. We were at Valley Sports Academy this past Saturday. Actually, Friday before, too, we were at the Wisconsin Baseball Coaches Convention, which is always a friendly place to be. Get to see some familiar faces. Josh and Vinny represented us out there. So there's a lot to go over this episode. We missed last week's episode, so we'll welcome you guys back this week with a couple players from both Kenosha and a ton of players out in western Wisconsin at our Eau Claire event, which is always a super fun event to take part in, just because we'll get into it. But there's always a bunch of guys out there that deserve college attention that we don't get to see a ton, so we'll dig into that as well. So I guess with that, you guys want to dig into Kenosha's event. I couldn't have been there myself, so you guys are going to have to do the heavy lifting on this one, actually.
No, and Andy, we appreciate you taking over the hosting duties as David Go has left the podcast to take on his new role, right, in Appleton. He's on his way to becoming a big TV anchor, whether that be in sports or regular news. But we wish David Go the best. Appreciate you, Andy, stepping in his stead to host the show. Also want to acknowledge Clayton Hopfinger, who is going to be producing the show in the background. So you guys won't hear or see of Clayton, but he is going to be doing a great job. He's already done a great job of releasing the last episode and cutting up these shorts and stuff like that for social media. So we are excited to keep rolling with this Badger State podcast. Yeah, a lot has happened since the last recording. And, this is my third year, guys, in Wisconsin with Prep Baseball.
That's so crazy.
It's crazy. It is crazy. And this winter, and the winter showcase season it makes your head spin, just considering what everyone has to do in the state in terms of running all the showcases and then all the post-event content. Couldn't be done without guys like you, Andy, and, of course, Josh Fields, who – my goodness, everything that Josh does in the state of Wisconsin, from helping run all the showcases, and in Illinois, by the way, and then also all the post-event stuff, and then helps with the rankings, and exactly. So, obviously happy to have Josh aboard here as well. So, so we went down to Puma Baseball Academy down in Kenosha. I say down; it's just a few miles south of Racine, where I live, but. Right on the border there. And look, good event. Had about 25 players at the first event. Love that event, right? Because it kind of gets you primed for what to expect in the showcase season as a staff, right? So we had a bunch of staff down there, just kind of get them primed and ready to go. And we saw some interesting players there. Josh Colon there at Puma Baseball Academy does just a phenomenal job, not just to single out just Josh Colon, because all the different program heads around the state do just a phenomenal job when you're talking about the R.J. Ferguses of the world, the Greg Reinhardts of the world, the Jason Burke and Eric Cordiers of the world, and not even mentioning the guys at Milwaukee Halos and Angels. I mean, it's everywhere. That's why the talent level in this state has taken off. It was because of all these different program heads. They do such a phenomenal job. And so, we started off with Josh Colon's facility here at down in Kenosha at Puma Baseball Academy. And look, we saw some interesting players. We saw a lot of interesting players from the Illinois side of things, but we're not going to mention those guys because they were mentioned on the Illinois podcast. And this is called the Badger State podcast, right? So we're highlighting the cheeseheads in the state at the showcases. But London Stanley, he's the guy that really. He is a twitchy athlete, 6'3", 174 pounds, but he is, long levered. He's twitchy. He's got more to that frame he's going to add. And he's just basically had another solid showing at what he was able to do. He goes to Tremper. They're going to be solid again this year because of what he can do. We didn't see him on the mound this time around, but he did showcase what he's able to do in the infield and then also at in the middle infield and then also first base. But just a twitchy guy, right? I mean, he crashes into the baseball with that swing and produces really good a controlled crash, right? It's not just flailing softball swing type thing. It's a controlled crash to the hitting position. It's a 94 mile per hour max exit velocity, which is impressive from London, because again, I do think once he fills that frame out, and it could be a couple more years yet until we see what London Stanley is capable of doing from a ceiling standpoint. It is a high ceiling. I mean, this kid, and he's got some feel for the game, and he loves the game as well. So was impressed again with London Stanley in Kenosha a couple of weeks ago. Josh, do you have any thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, you already mentioned the frame. The frame stands out immediately, 6'3", 170. It's honestly, personally, I don't know what he's going to be able to long-term wise, just because the ceiling is so immense on both sides of the ball. Like the mound, it's intriguing. He can play a bunch of different positions in the field, and then, like you said, the swing we've seen working game, and we're going to see it again as a multi-year starter.
Yeah, it's actually worth mentioning too that I feel like there are a lot of instances of these. They just come to mind, the Puma Baseball Academy guys that have really blossomed kind of later in their careers, and it feels like there's a lot of versions of London Stanley, or it's like a kid who is pretty tall or kind of long levered and maybe is a little uncoordinated at a younger age, but really puts it together as they get older, mature, and develop. We're going to talk a little bit later in this episode about some college baseball standouts, but Fields, you'll be familiar with this name, Shoreland Lutheran kid. Sawyer Smith, Puma Baseball Academy kid, who kind of reminds me not of London Stanley per se, but just of sort of that mold. He was a really interesting player, physically when he was younger, and it totally materialized in college. He went to St. Cloud State, thrived there, and now he's at Kansas doing a phenomenal job already, off and running. So, it's athletes like this and that size and with that kind of physicality to them, you kind of always have to be paying attention to them and their progress, because all of a sudden they can turn into this legitimate impact performer on both sides of the ball. So we'll see in Stanley's case how
that's a really good point, Andy. And don't forget about TJ Williams, who is also a Puma Baseball Academy player as well. Yep. So he's off at Kansas. Now, he's not a physical specimen. He's a smaller frame guy, but I mean, my goodness, he's got an 80 run tool to go with it. So, but he was another one. The next guy we wanted to talk about, he kind of really took us by surprise a little bit with what we saw from a kid named Everett Lucero, Westosha Central, right? So he was a freshman last year, and he came on the scene during Westosha's state run, and he played some first base, some DH for them during their state run last year as a freshman. And he came out to this event. I was very impressed, Josh, and I know you were too, but 96 mile per hour max exit velo. And we're going to be throwing around these numbers a lot when we talk about these showcases, the max exit velos, the velocities across the infield, but we're not only hung up on that, right? We're not only going to be talking about that. That's not the only thing that we pick up on, but it is something that jumps out at you when you see a kid like Everett Lucero, sophomore. He's a 2027 at Westosha, and certainly could handle himself with the glove at first base with what we saw at the showcase a couple of weeks ago, but then also just the swing. So quick. It's a tight rotation through the baseball. I actually think there's more in there. Just he could probably make a couple of tweaks with his load, I thought. But despite that, I think even so, he was still exhibiting just pretty good talent level with the bat and with his hands, how fast his hands were. I was able to impact the baseball to all fields. This kid is a little bit of a sleeper, in my opinion, just from what we saw. Again, it's a first base profile, pretty athletic in the way that he was able to handle himself on defense around the first base bag. It just shows that he does have a lot of feel for the game, clearly has feel for the barrel and feel for defensively at first base.
Yeah. No, that's good to know, because Fields and I were on our road trip down on Monday. We went to an Illinois showcase to help out there, and we were going through some of the WIAA Outlook, team previews, that sort of thing. And Westosha's returning a ton. They were at state last year, obviously, semis, and having another name to kind of make sure we're keeping an eye out for here after his freshman year last year. So, well, that'll be good. Fields, do you recall, Everett's round, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of loud contact and it was a lot of elevation, I believe, especially up the middle. Like, from a 6 foot, I believe he's 6'2", about
Six,
pretty
6'3",
physical frame.
230, yeah.
Yeah, 6'3", 230, like right profile. I mean, this guy already like is on the barrel and already has some feel to elevate and lift the ball. Like, this is exactly what you want out of a first baseman, especially a guy that can stick at the position and kind of
Good call,
defend over
Josh.
there.
I wanted to just a couple other guys too. Maybe I'll take Schoenfield, and then Josh, you want to just mention, and I know you loved, and I did too, but Colton Flukas. But a couple other names that we do want to kind of mention is Brady Schoenfield. He was one of the, talk to Josh Cologne, and he just raves about Brady Schoenfeld and what he is just the profile. It's a two-way profile. The body's still developing, right? So it's a little bit of a later bloomer type of a player, and I know all about that, right? So I didn't develop physically until I was basically in college, and this kid could be on that same path, but he's got a ton of feel for the game. Brady Schoenfeld, 5'7", 150 pounds, but shows a very, very clean, smooth kind of actions in and around the batter's box, and then also on defense, and then as well as the mound. I mean, he's the velocities aren't going to jump off the page as far as what he's been able to do on the mound, but it's up to it's near 80 miles per hour. But he showcased a ton of feel for the baseball and the ability to drive it through spots with the fastball, and then had a curveball changeup to go with it. But then again, the bat, I mean, is 92 mile per hour max exit velo with an average of 86.1. But he was a swing. This was a swing on Schoenfeld. He wasn't trying to max out. He wasn't trying to optimize. And sometimes you do see that from kids, the max exit velocities, right? It was a smooth, effortless type of a swing, and he was still producing those high exit velos. So he's all over the barrel to all fields, and then on defense as well. So he wasn't necessarily trying to let it eat on every single throw, but he did show smooth actions and quality actions and quality footwork in the middle of the infield. So Schoenfeld's another player that is likely going to pop in a couple of years.
Nice. Yeah, Fields Flukas.
Yeah, going on the Flukas, I mean, he kind of just gives off the vibe of this is like a low pulse guy. Like, everything works super easy with Flukas. I mean, when you watch the swing, it's just a lot of fluidity throughout the entire swing, even pre-pitch movement into like making contact past the baseball. Like, it's very impressive, and of course he drives the ball. It was on the barrel. I mean, I believe he had near the highest average exit velo of the event, so just repeated hard contact throughout the field. And it's probably a corner outfielder, like profiles maybe in either corner, but there's some arm strength there as well, and on it, there's still some ceiling left. I mean, with the athlete, with the body, with the frame. So just a guy to watch out for.
Yeah, in preparation for the podcast, I was going back through a bunch of video, and Flukas' swing stood out to me too. So, yeah, good that we mentioned him here. Okay, great. Well, let's move on to our event from this past Saturday at Valley Sports Academy, just outside of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which, like I said, is always fun to just see the results out there, because there's a ton of once the spring comes, there's always these Western Wisconsin kids who maybe go to a smaller school. It's just a part of the state that we unfortunately don't get to as often as we'd like, but we're hoping with the amount of talent out there, especially this spring with some draft guys that we're going to have to see, like Auden Pankin and Cooper Jesperson, we'll hopefully get out there a little bit more often. But with that being said, I think there's some players who kind of made names for themselves this past Saturday, who are going to force us to get out there even more, I would think. I was actually down in Georgia this past weekend watching some Georgia high school baseball down there at Lake Point. So again, I couldn't make this past weekend, but I will be at all these other Wisconsin events to talk about these guys myself, alongside these Vinny and Fields. But so you guys again are gonna have to pick me up here with some of the standouts from Eau Claire. But I guess first, some of the guys that maybe we did know of, a few of the kids coming on Saturday. Mason Schmidt, future gamer, Logan Hagman, one of the top 27s. But do you want to start with maybe some of the kids who we had no idea who they were prior to the event that really popped on Saturday?
Yeah. Let's talk about some of those guys, and that's a good call because this side of the state, you touched on it, Andy. We don't get to see him a whole ton, but it feels a little bit like almost like the Wild West out there, just in terms of like the untapped. Not that it's untapped, but it's just unknown talent. Just because a lot of these kids aren't necessarily playing for like the top end type of a program. Some kids are still playing Legion ball, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's what I played growing up and stuff like that. But that's why sometimes we just, and especially being 3-4 hours away, we don't get a ton of opportunity to see these players. But so some of the unknown names, like this kid. This was one of the more interesting arms I've seen in my 3 years at going and running these showcases. But Sam Brasina, right, 6 foot, 125 pounds, right? So just totally not undersized or underdeveloped. I'm just saying, is late bloomer physically. But once he does add some weight and some mass to that frame, watch out. It was 80 miles per hour. He was slinging it from a low 3/4 slot from the left side. And it was a quick, whippy arm. First couple of pitches on the mound. What impressed me a lot about him, the first couple of pitches on the mound from Sam, they were a little bit awry. He left him arm side. He kind of sailed a couple of balls up and away. And what he did was he made a very, very quick adjustment and kept that front shoulder closed. Mechanically, he was sound from then on, and he was just nailing spots. He was getting the fastball to the cross corner, inside to a righty, creating some angle. He could spin a breaking ball, and then he had feel for a changeup. But this kid is very, very interesting, and he is going to be one of these guys. And we talk about some other guys like Brolin Frost that we have seen in the past in the low 80s, and all of a sudden we haven't seen that velocity quite get to where we think it's going to get, and we do certainly think it's going to get there from Brolin. But this is a similar type of a profile from Sam Brasina. You're going to see this kid pop and just going to shoot up the rankings for us in that 2027 class. Really interesting arm in Sam.
Yeah, and we talk about the frame here. 6 foot 125. He still looks extremely young and not finished growing at all.
That video
super
was
high
really
waist, super baby faced.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just on the video look, that Brasina kid was super interesting from the weekend. But actually, Vinny, too, you got to talk about Brady Smith. We were trading texts back and forth just as a group chat. Since I couldn't be down there, just kind of who popped out, and Vinny was blowing up Brady Smith in the group chat. In the 3 years of doing this, I don't know I have seen such an impressive display of touch and feel, pitch ability in a bullpen setting that I had from Brady Smith this weekend, right on Saturday. It looked like, and I love my comps. I'm not comping him to who did I say? Stroman. I said Stroman because of the body, because he's 5'7", right? And Brady Smith, I think, is going to tick up in terms of size, height, weight, and stuff like that. Because he's actually pretty athletic. He certainly was athletic with getting through the delivery and getting through the baseball. But I'm just talking about the touch and feel for the baseball. I think and then the fastball topped out at 82, and that he told us that was a personal best of his. But it also had the spin rate and the IVB. It sounds like he can really pitch.
He can definitely pitch to all four quadrants with the heater. But then he also had it was a nasty breaking ball, the way that he was able to spin it, and he had a true cutter. We're like, usually when a kid has a cutter, it blends a lot with, either it doesn't do much or it actually blends and actually is more of like a true slider. But this was actually a true cutter, the way that it had that little short break right at the end, right in the hitting zone. And he was commanding it exactly where he wanted to every single time. It was so, again, you don't see this from kids in high school. Shoot, you barely see that from kids in minor league baseball. You know what I mean? The professional. It was just so impressive, the touch and feel. And then he had a disgusting changeup. And I know, Josh, you wanted to maybe touch on how nasty Brady Smith's changeup was at the event.
Yeah, I think the changeup audibly I couldn't speak for a few seconds after that, just visibly watching it. It was over 20 inches of running. We had 23 inches of run track then. The plate is only 17 inches. It's running from one batter's box to the other batter's box. It's a filthy pitch, and it's thrown in the mid-70s.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be watching exactly what Brady Smith is going to be doing this spring, and it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of schools are going to keep tabs on what Brady Smith does. Again, the body 5'7", but he'll tick up a little bit. I think the velocity at the end of the day will get to a place where he's definitely going to be able to get outs at that next level in college. I mean, he can get outs right now in college with what I saw, but I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like, since I've been doing this too, I feel like that's almost one of the more rare traits like you see is just like that. The guy who just like knows how to pitch and get outs and throw strikes and like compete with a bunch of a wide arsenal. There's just a ton of touch and feel like that. It's actually one of the more rare things you see. Like, see a lot of guys who can add on velo, whatever, like power arm, like all that stuff is impressive in its own way. But like being able to pitch and just get outs, like, you find college baseball homes that way. So like kudos there to him. And it sounds like we're also going to have to keep an eye out for Chippewa Falls. Both those arms that we mentioned, Preseason and Smith, are both from Chippewa Falls. They do a pretty good job out there. They're always competitive, I feel like. So we'll pay attention to them for sure. But who else did you guys want to touch on from Saturday?
I'll talk about West Strait, and then maybe Josh, you can talk about the standout in Alex Johnson. But Ethan West Strait, sophomore, he was actually mentioned in the WIA kind of preview book, right? The yearbook coming out, that he was going to be all state honorable mention, which you can definitely envision. Ethan West Strait, I went up to him after his defensive work. I said, look, are you more of a third baseman? Because not a knock on him. I mean, it is very difficult to play a high-level third base, and that's what I envisioned from this kid. Just the actions, how fluid it was, the very accurate arm across the infield, really soft hands, the quality feet. Whenever you see quality footwork from an infielder, that to me is just so impressive. One, because I had terrible feet as an infielder, but it's just so impressive because that's the type of a player that's going to be able to make the routine play with the game on the line. This is what you see from an Ethan West Strait. Not only the footwork in that regard, just the low pulse is. You talk about a player that just not that it's ho hum. The difference between low pulse and low heartbeat, right? So he doesn't have, so low heartbeat you want to watch out for. You want to be worried about. That's not West Strait. That's more of a lazy player. Low pulse is a guy that you want the ball hit to him with the game on the line, or you want that kid to be up with the game on the line. That's West Strait. Impressive exit velocity as well. Very strong, kind of a compact frame body in West Strait. So able to impact the baseball as well as really look good in the infield. I do envision him more as a position player prospect. Impressive on the mound as well. So. Velocities, I believe, were up into the 82, 84, low 80s range, but had some ability to spin a breaking ball. Strikes as well with a changeup. So more of a position player prospect for me, and I can definitely envision him being an in-game performer in Ethan West Strait.
Yeah, huge freshman year from out of Fall Creek for West Strait, so that'll be a kid we got to watch in his sophomore year now for sure. So, Fields, if you want to mention Johnson here, and then maybe you can talk about Mason Schmidt as well, because I know how excited you were after seeing his pen on Saturday. But, why don't you mention Alex Johnson here real quick?
Yeah, so Alex Johnson is a 6'1", right-handed pitcher, two-way prospect. Plays a lot of infield for out of Eau Claire Memorial. Super high ceiling on either side. Like, he started out the day, obviously we start out with 60s and then going into hitting and then finishing off with pitching, but I was really impressed with just the movement patterns and just the quality of the contact out of the swing for Johnson. It was, I believe it was some really, one second, let me pull that up. Yeah, it was a 70% line drive and 80% hits sweet spot percentage throughout the round. Like, we don't really see a lot of that, especially up north in Wisconsin. Like,
and he's a sophomore, so. Yeah,
he's a sophomore as well. And then on the mound, it was just about as clean as it can get. It's a 6'1", really loose, with really whippy arm, and really just the fastball's already in the mid 80s with life, and there's some strikes, and there's just a lot of working ingredients that really makes Johnson just an exciting prospect as a sophomore.
Yeah, I think he popped up in the summer through at a tournament or two
Yeah, was our fourth time seeing him at a event.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a real prospect then. So, yeah, Alex Johnson, Eau Claire Memorial, that's big time. Keeping an eye out for him and the Memorial team, especially with Jesperson, like we mentioned earlier in the podcast. So some things to see out there. But then, that brings us to, arguably the breakout performance, I mean, of the winter, I guess, so far through 2 events. But, we have been believers in Mason Schmidt. He was a future gamer for us last summer. But, naturally took a step forward this offseason. It seems like he really, really took advantage of the winter. Checks just a ton of boxes, like metrically, all of these like pitch profiles, that sort of thing. But like, Fields, you want to just dig in on that because there's a lot to break down here. I mean, this was a huge day for Mason Schmidt in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it looks like the start of a true power starter's like profile. It's a fastball that has some carry traits to it, and he throws it throughout the zone, especially he has some feel to locate at the top of the zone. And then he has 2 secondary offerings that are just filthy on their own, like, regard. Like, he could, a lot of times you have to, evaluate an arsenal with all of the pitches in mind, but these pitches really just play true by themselves. Like, starting off with the slider, it is a true almost sweeper type pitch with some depth to it in the upper 70s, and then he also has a changeup to pair off of that with true really late fading action into the low 80s. It's a 8-mile-an-hour difference from the fastball and about 10-mile-an-hour or 10-inch IVB difference off of the fastball. So it's a truly different pitch. Yeah. And then on top of that, he developed a sinker over the winter as well, and that's just gonna give him another offering to help him out like later in the outings.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask you both your opinion, because whenever you see a guy that has such a good, slider, right, the ability to spin the ball like Mason Schmidt was able to do, what we saw, and we've seen this from a number of different guys around the state, but like the ability to really spin it and then throw. So you have to turn that pitch over, right? But then also to be able to throw a sinker, which means you have to really pronate through that baseball, meaning turn your arm over the other way. That's a pretty, you do see guys being able to develop that a little bit more with all the different technologies now, the Rapsodos and stuff like that, and going in these pitching labs and stuff like that. But that's easier said than done, right? It's pretty difficult to do.
Oh, 100%. Because Fields, what you were alluding to earlier was that like a lot of times, and this is completely like normal, is like, especially at this young of an age for all these kids that we see, is like they have 2-3 interesting pitches like individually, but they don't necessarily like complement each other as like a full arsenal like that you would project on like as a college or pro player even. With Schmidt, and like I'm not sure if it was just kind of came natural to him or he like something he honed or kind of a little bit of both, but his entire mix does seem to complement each other, and I'm kind of glad that he added a sinker. Not to say that like this four-seamer is very interesting metrically too, but just given the amount of the kind of movement that he's getting on this like sweeper type breaking ball, the changeup, it almost feels like the sinker it really enhances like those secondaries as well. But not to say that this fastball isn't good, because it is. Like, it was up to 90, 91 on Saturday. But Fields, do you have a take on that?
I mean, there's just not a lot of guys that can both pronate and supinate at a high level, especially with, some guys have just movement biases with their just anatomy. So just finding a guy that can do both is especially, one, opens up a ton of other options in your pitch arsenal in a pitch design session. And it really just kind of raises the ceiling for Mason naturally there as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was a huge day for him, which we were glad to see. Just again, as a future gamer, and he was a great kid. I thought we had an awesome dugout in the future games last year in particular. It was just a ton of good kids around, and Schmidt was one of them, because he had a great outing, his first outing, and like I think we mentioned it a couple times, but like all of our like third game, a lot of our guys just like ran into some walks and stuff, which happens every year. I think coaches are expecting that to a degree, and but the kids are hard on themselves and all that. But I felt like there's a difference between like being hard on yourself and like, you know, taking that and using that. And it almost feels like he did exactly that. He like took whatever he learned from 2024. And then it sounds like he just came out and like put on a show on Saturday. So good for him. Also accustomed to putting on a show. Logan Hagman, Vinny, what's the latest here?
Yeah, talk about putting on a show. I mean, so he kind of burst onto our scene, has really solidified himself on our scene a year ago from when he showed up at this event as a freshman. Now he comes out as a sophomore. He added 13 pounds. Basically we measured him at the Wisconsin State games at 185, and now he's 197. Or 198 actually. So 13 pounds of very good weight. He looked like he was absolutely shredded, and he comes out and he runs a 6.81 60-yard dash. I mean, that's pretty impressive from a kid of his stature, physical stature. I mean, he's a big kid. And then I think he jumped the best 20. I think he jumped 27 inches. Yeah. So best vertical of the day at 27 inches. And remember, we're using that Vald system, which takes the true vertical. I think our Swift system was kind of fudging the numbers a little bit in these last few years. But the Vald system taking a true vertical, so that's an impressive number at 27 inches. So we're talking about an athlete that is, and then just the way that he has improved behind the dish as well. So pop times right around 2 seconds, a little bit under, 194 actually. 194 to 201 was his range this time around with 80 miles per hour velocity, right? So I think we had him at 74, 75 in the past at past showcases with his arm strength. Today it was 80 from in the crouch. So impressive. I thought his hands looked very, very good. He ended up catching Mason Schmidt in his bullpen, which is not an easy task with how Mason's ball was moving all around. Handled him totally fine. I thought the catching was very, very good. Fields and I were both very impressed with how advanced the defense was. And, of course, the bat is his calling card. That's his carrying tool. So It's the power. It's 100-mile-per-hour exit velocity. It's a blurry bat with blurry hands when you see him. So
it looked like he was swinging drop 5
exactly.
or something like that in the video. He's ridiculously strong with bat speed, and so no surprise there. I mean, he had a massive freshman year, which again, like you'd think sometimes, like when kids this talented, like just kind of walk into the WIA as freshmen and like hit 500 with 10 home runs. And it doesn't happen, but like Logan Hagman got pretty close to doing that, which is just ridiculous. So that's how talented he is. I got to learn from Hunter Carlson, catcher at Hudson a year ago. Now he's ready to step in. That team's going to be really, really good this spring. I think he's going to be one of the leaders too. So just really excited. Super bright future out of Logan. But Fields, anything to add or anybody else to mention here?
I mean, just more impressive was the 6'8", 160 when Vinny didn't take off his coat the entire day because the facility was just freezing. So,
very true.
Yep.
Yeah, I did want to mention Isaiah Alberg on this because he's really just developed into this true catch-and-throw guy that can really handle the bat from the right side. Alberg was somebody that we've grown accustomed to the last few years and even led his team, along with his brother, who's now at Colorado Mesa, Abe Alberg, to the state finals last year. And, Alberg was repeated hard contact elevation from the right side, and it was the top pop time of the day, and it's slower to like get out and like to throw, but it is 80 mile an hour from behind the plate, and it's right on the bag to the tune of like a 180 to a 196. It was. Yeah,
he wasn't below a 2. It was really impressive. Alberg, I love the swing too. I mean, just smooth, free, and easy, and just all over the barrel. So I mean, he really uses his levers really well with that lower half, and he kind of really doesn't jump off the backside, but uses that backside extremely well to the front, but under control. Loved the swings well. And the other guy that I wanted to mention is Clayton Crochelle. So we've seen Clayton play really well in these settings, and this is a guy that's also developed physically, more athletic now. 6.79 60-yard dash. That was the best of the day. And that was, I believe he told me that was his personal best of a 60-yard dash as well. So it's the best we've seen him. And so that's important for Clayton because I do think, we like him on the mound. It's up to 85. I think there's some nice pieces there that he's going to be able to get outs, and perhaps even in college be able to get outs. It's up to 85. Good breaking ball, good changeup. But I do think his prospects he's got a high ceiling and a bright future from the outfield. And so if he can play a center, and obviously his ability to run like that, I mean, he can likely stick at center. A kid with a ton of feel for the game. It's such a short swing too, and I love how he keeps the barrel above the baseball and backspins it. He was hitting rockets throughout the mound, 97-mile-per-hour max exit velo, so that's really impressive from Clayton. It was a really nice day from Clayton Crochelle, and so I'm excited to see where he actually ends up because he's still uncommitted. The 2026,
Yep. Yeah, no, definitely need to keep paying attention to Clayton. He's an athletic kid, so he's been performing for a while now. So interesting landing spots for sure out there. Like, we'll see. Things are moving a little slowly in the commitment world, I would say. But I don't know. Unfortunately, I think you just have to preach patience. Like, it's just not like years past. Like, I think some of these freshmen are probably accustomed to seeing, kids who are 2-3 years older than them, commit by this time if they were like a high level player, and it's just not the same world. So unfortunately, I just think you have to be more patient than ever. I think college guys are starting to look, for 26s still now, they're this spring and early summer and stuff. So even if you are a high level player, so things are just looking different. So we're just gonna have to keep our finger on the pulse there to see how things move and adjust.
I did want to mention one thing, Andy, as we talk about all these players that we see at the showcases here throughout the winter here, and we got a couple of big ones coming up here in terms of numbers. These next 5 showcases are actually going to be pretty massive. Yeah. But when we talk about players, I don't want people to sit here and listen to this podcast and think, well, how come I wasn't talked about, or where am I in the rankings? And I talk to players about this all the time. You can't really get caught up so much in that. You guys got to just continue to try and get better every single day at this game of baseball, and don't worry about the list. Don't worry about whether or not you're being mentioned on the quick hits or the podcast. There's so many stories that we love to report on when we say, you know what, we missed on that kid, right? We want to talk about stories like that. So use that as fuel, right? Use that as an opportunity to light that fire under yourself to say, okay, how can I get better at this game? I just am so sensitive to that because as a player, I wasn't on any list either, right? So, and I just kind of made a way for myself and made a name for myself through college at a Division III level and then all the way into the major league. So it can happen for you. I just want to always encourage those players, even though you might feel slighted at times, use that as fuel and continue to get better.
Yep. No, that's a good point, Vinny. And we're about to talk about some college baseball players that stood out from this opening weekend, and I think there's several of these guys who weren't on our list necessarily, or weren't the lead story coming out of a showcase or something like that. They were kind of a slow and steady, continuously get better type of player, and they're now starting at some college and just had an awesome opening weekend, for example. So couldn't agree more. It's sometimes it is just a slow, steady progress, developing upwards, just getting better slowly but surely, and then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, okay, I've come a really long way, and now I have results to show for it. So totally agree there. So with that, I guess I'm just going to run through this list. We were talking about it in our group chat just throughout the weekend. It just felt like Wisconsin in particular, this opening weekend in Division I baseball, they just kind of blew up, in my opinion. It felt like there was a ton of kids performing high levels. We had several guys start for their opening day teams at the top of the rotation. We had kids like Mitch Voigt stands out. I guess if there were a player of the week in this segment, it might be Mitch Voigt at Michigan. He had a monster week. So I'm just going to run through this. Actually, it feels like it just popped into my head. Maybe if you want to pull up some stats for some of these guys, I tried to jot some of them down. Voigt, and I think they tweeted his final weekend line. They were in Puerto Rico for a opening weekend tournament. But he had a crazy weekend. But Tyler Schmidt, here's a classic example of what Vinny was referring to. He was at Madison Memorial, went to UW La Crosse. Now he's Illinois' opening day starter. He started against Abilene Christian there, so big time. There were 3 Wisconsin kids in North Dakota State's lineup. Jake Schaffner hit his first home run of the season. He's probably the best prospect in the Summit League. Really interested to see what kind of year he has because he just continues to get better and better and better. Really one of the best prospects, I think, in like that region, or at least from that class. He was part of a special Wisconsin class, and he is really taken off in college, so kudos there. We got Dylan Navarre is one of Western Michigan's, like he's close to Western Michigan's all-time home run leader, to becoming home run leader all-time there. 10 homers shy. Cole Selvig, former top prospects, Minnesota's opening day starter. He had a really nice start there for them. Griffin Smith, actually, Fields, you might want to like look up his line too, because he had a great start against Arkansas. Yeah, do you have it actually?
I mean, it was 5 shutout innings with a couple punches, but
yeah, against Arkansas. I mean, this was a big deal. He went another guy like who was unheralded, I guess, if you want to say that in high school. Like, yeah, we just need. I remember liking him too. He had a really clean, good arm, easy operation. Like it kind of like makes me think differently about so many of these guys. Like Tyler Schmidt was the same way. Like this really pretty easy arm action without like 90 plus velo. And, eventually that comes. Like, he does everything else right. And Smith went on to Rock Valley Junior College. Was super good there as soon as he touched campus, I feel like.
Yeah, Smith holds most of the individual pitching season records.
Yeah, he was awesome there. We had a scout day there, like a year and a half, or like 2 years ago. We do one every year, but like 2 years ago when he pitched at that scout day, I remember he had like ridiculous metrics. So keep going down the list here, I guess. But Cam Kunke, like UWM, they went 1-2 in the weekend. Kunke, though, hit a couple home runs for them. Freshman John Hadley from Sun Prairie East also had, I think, 2 doubles. He can really hit. A really good left-handed hitter. Probably someone we needed to pay a little bit better attention to even in high school. We liked him, but, I mean, this left-handed bat is, like, legit. So he's already off and running at UWM. Matthew Mueller transferred in there from Brookfield Central. He originally from Gonzaga, I should say, but he's originally from Brookfield Central. Kind of a tough-look lefty. 6 strikeouts in 3 innings, I think. Some other freshmen that started. Eddie Peters started at Xavier. Nolan Sandy, I don't know if he started for NIU, but he had a grand slam and a 2-run single in his debut, his first game. Jack Tatine pitched for Xavier his opening weekend as a college baseball player. CJ Trask homer for Bradley as a true freshman there. So I don't know. The list goes on. Does anything stand out to you guys from some of these guys? There's even more I could cover.
I mean, it's just, first of all, you hesitate not to have a little bit of a tear in your eye when you look at this list. I mean, how many really good college, and this is a abbreviated list of all the guys that are playing D1 baseball out there for the state of Wisconsin. So it's just so impressive. Take your pick of things that impress you. I mean, Mitch Voigt, right? You mentioned it, Andy, before the podcast. I mean, he's going to play himself into a top 100 type of a draft prospect this spring. Mm-hmm. He's currently, in the 200 range, 200 plus range for us at prep baseball. But he's a guy that's just going to continue to. He's just a gamer. I watched him pitch at Whitefish Bay against Marquette University, or I forget who I watched him play, but it was just super impressive. And he's just a gamer. The kid is a gamer, two-way gamer. So is he actually he's going to get some innings, right, for Michigan, or where's he at as far as his? He'll continue to be a two-way guy.
But I mean the bat, feels like it's sort of continued to separate itself. I mean, but he can't. He's a legitimate pitcher as well, but he's just so athletic and physical, and like he can defend too, like third base, like he kind of does everything.
Yes,
it's really impressive, and he's super young still for the class. Like that'll, I'm sure, age well in terms of like teams, draft teams, models, that sort of thing.
I pulled up the stats, and I'm watching just the highlights of the weekend, and this guy has juiced all fields.
All
and it's
fields,
easy
yeah.
juice.
He hit a monster. I don't know if it was a home run or if it just went off the right field fence. Either way, I mean, he's pulling balls like 400 feet and then hitting balls 400 feet the other direction.
It's crazy how twitchy and strong he is. It's such a compact
8 for
frame.
17, 4 doubles.
Yeah, 8 for 17,
Two
4
home
doubles.
runs.
Yeah, yeah. He had a crazy.
How about
crazy weekend. So yeah, he's going to be one of those like huge risers. I think this spring in the college.
And he'll be a guy once he gets to pro ball too. Is just going to surprise people. Like, what? You weren't you were a what rounder? You know, I think he'll actually end up getting drafted pretty high. But like he'll show up at a complex for some organization, and they're going to be like, whoa, like you went under the radar for way too long. But maybe that'll change this spring with how he's going to perform. He might just outplay everybody.
Yeah.
Which you could see. The other guy is obviously Gavin Keelan, who is, may end up in the first round, and rightfully so. Just transferred into Tennessee, right, for this year and hit his first home run. I mean, he's it's interesting because, Andy, this is the first time that I met Andy Soroka is at a Gavin Keelan high school game at Milton. Yeah. And we watched him play. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see it. You know, I can see why he's such a highly touted prospect. He didn't do anything in the game, though, for us, right? So he hit a couple of ground balls.
He went like 0 for 4. I actually think he made like an error or two, which is like pretty rare. Like he's a defender.
But this is the complete package here.
But it goes to show that, you look for more than just those single performances. Right. So if we see you at a game and you don't play well, it doesn't mean
right.
Terrible.
Exactly. So.
If there's anything else here on this, like Avery Duncan pitched, there was just a lot of guys that were like true freshmen, like who made appearances in their very first college games or their first weekends. Like Avery Duncan struck out a couple guys in his first inning of work. Eddie Peters, I think I said that, but Eddie Peters was starting for Xavier. Oh, and I mentioned we didn't talk about it, but like Alex Breckheimer, Sawyer Smith, both. I mean, another two classic underranked, under-recruited type guys from Wisconsin that, kind of fell between the cracks on our side too. I mean, we liked Sawyer Smith a lot in high school. I do remember that, but still not high enough on him for like the skill level here. But Breckheimer kind of popped in college at Bryant Stratton. But both those guys, as well as TJ Williams, they're all at the Kansas program now, which is pretty cool. Sawyer Smith homered over the weekend. Breckheimer pitched. I think he pitched pretty well, right, Fields?
Yeah, it was 3 punchies all on fastballs on his first inning.
Hey, there was a little energy, if I'm not mistaken, on the mound. I think in the
Breck pitches with a ton of fire. It's a fun watch.
That was good. Yeah, Ryan Kars pitched, I believe, in the 3 innings of relief for Indiana State. It's good to see.
No, he was the opening day starter. Yeah.
Oh, he was the starter. Oh, he did. Oh, okay, my bad. Yeah, my bad, Ryan. Louisville was filled with a ton of Wisconsin kids as usual. Alex Alisea.
Speaking of Louisville, that Alisea catch.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. He traveled a mile to get that thing. I've never seen him not make it.
I texted a couple of scout friends of mine the tweet of that catch, and one of them said, I actually saw that live. So he was at the game and was super impressed with the catch. The other guy, Cam Kunke, right? Homers twice, 2 homers. Yep. So this kid can hit, and watch out for UW Milwaukee, right? I mean, continue. We've been talking a ton about UWM and the talent that they're getting from inside the state, and so they're just going to continue to do that and tick up as a program. Excited to follow the Panthers this spring, actually.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's a lot to pull from in Wisconsin, as you can see, like with some of these guys making like instant impacts in the college ranks. But if there's one thing that like the portal and the recruiting rules have kind of changed, like the consequence, I guess, of that is that like I think hopefully UWM will like kind of have a shot at more guys, like just for whatever reason. I think before it, some of these guys were willing to take chances to like head out to walk on opportunities and so on, but hopefully that means that UWM will just get to keep more of these guys in state and as a result be competing for whatever regionals and then some. So I like what they're doing over there, so kind of pulling for them. Our only D1 team in the state.
Yeah, we are. Yep.
We kind of have to pull for them. All right, awesome. Well, I think that brings us to the Routina report this week.
Yeah, today we are. Today we are going to highlight. Just a fast riser in Sam Heft, Port Washington High School Sam Heft, we've seen him a ton, right? And we've always kind of liked him, and we were kind of waiting for him to pop. Well, he popped, right? So it was at the pro case, and he was touching 93 miles per hour. It was 92, 93. It was a 2,400 RPM spin rate on the fastball. It was command of the fastball, nasty curveball to go with it, 78, 80 miles per hour. Good the split. He's actually got a split that's developing as well. So what was it like? Kind of crazy to see is how he's always been a physical kid, but that has ticked up even more so now with his physicality and how lean muscle mass that he has added, the ability to control that delivery, a little bit of a head whack in the pass with some, maybe a little bit of a stiffer move through the baseball. Well, he's smoothed that out quite a bit, and you could see it in the results with the ability to command the baseball to all the quadrants and then throw the secondaries to go along with it. So Sam Heft, very, very impressive look at the pro case. Currently 34th ranked player in the state, but I got to imagine next cycle that's going to tick up a little bit for Sam.
Yeah, Fields and I were kind of going through that. Yeah, it seems like he's going to move up after that outing just on the bullpen alone. I mean, there's just a ton to like there. He's actually recently committed as well. He recently decommitted, so he's actually not committed to a school right now, but he is a must-see. Like if you're a college coach listening to this, like wherever, Sam Heft is needs to be on the radar. If you need some 2025 still, it is that good. I think it's no matter who you are, like you're going to want to look at Sam Heft.
Yep.
Fields, anything to add on Heft before we move on?
I mean, just the quality of that breaking ball, along with
really
some of the funk that he has going on there. It's somebody that I'd want in the staff.
Yeah, he's Sam, really talented. That's a Routina report there. All right, guys. Well, this weekend we have a huge event this Sunday at Styx Academy in Waukesha. They've been doing a really good job over the past few years, especially, but they've kind of been a staple in Southeast Wisconsin for a while as well. But it's going to be a great event. Like, the roster is jam-packed. I mean, there are some mega arms on this roster that we're excited to see. So we're going to have a ton of takeaways. So it's going to be a busy podcast, I would imagine, coming out of this event coming up. I don't know. Anything else to add, guys?
No, I think that, you know what? I think, Andy, we got to give you a big round of applause after your first hosting task, and you absolutely killed it. So thanks for jumping in.
I appreciate that, because I got to leave us with our famous outro here. As always, we'll leave you with this. Let's bring back Badger baseball. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Badger State Ball Podcast. To keep tabs on our latest events, rankings, and coverage, subscribe or follow the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us over at PrepBaseballWI on X and at PrepBaseballReport.com/Wisconsin. Until next time.